Happy Tuesday that feels like a Monday. How are you guys doing today? Thank you for joining me. Little bit of a few changes through Facebook. My apologies and Life Pro's apologies if there's been some missed notifications on the lives. Facebook's ever changing, how we access and put these things across multiple channels. So I may not be showing in all Life Pro pages, and if we don't show live, we'll be sure to get the recording up and posted so you guys can check that out later on. If you are joining me today, today's going to be a good one. It's all about bone density questions again lately. Well, how do I do it? What's the best machine? What's the best setting? I'm going to blow your mind and simplify all of those answers today. If you are joining me, please let me know if you can see and hear me. I want to make sure that I'm coming through on the other end. I'm just going to check Facebook land. I've done a number of sessions on bone density, but it's one of those things that is, people are becoming conscious of it at different stages of their life. It looks like I am coming through on the other end there, so I'm going to close that up and focus on you guys. Bone density and fall prevention kind of go hand in hand. One, the bone density side of that benefit and using your machine, your vibration plate for those type of things is more of a long-term benefit. It took a long time for your bones to deteriorate, but bones rejuvenate themselves every day. And everything that you can start doing right now is going to further the equation down the road. The short-term benefit and the biggest reason that I want you thinking about using your vibration plates regularly is the falls prevention piece. So if you're coming from a place of very, very poor health, you're very frail, perhaps you're recovering from treatments that have decreased your bone density, there's a number of reasons you get into a situation where those bones are not as strong as they could be. But depending on you as an individual, how strong you are, how mobile you are, how stable you are, sometimes there's some short-term things that I'd like you to focus on. And all the while you're doing all these short-term things, whether it's improving your balance, managing pain for those of you that are dealing with pain due to a diagnosis, all these little encouraging spot treatments that I always talk about, using your plate regularly for 2 to 3 minutes here and there, all of this consistent use long-term adds up to stronger bones. I'll admit it. Some of the best bone density results I've seen in the 20 years of coaching on these machines hasn't been from the guy doing the bone density program and hitting the gym 4 days a week. It's people that are simply using their plates regularly to manage their pain, their symptoms as a lifestyle tool. Most of us are not coming from a place of exercising for purpose. So, later in life, when all of a sudden you have a bone density diagnosis, and usually it's never one thing, people. It's diabetes, or you got MS, or you're dealing with cancer. There's usually more than one thing. I have to have my foot positioned right on my stool. That you're dealing with. So everything that I do isn't specific to bone density or MS. It's more about looking at yourself where you are physically starting. So if you've got other goals, other things that you're dealing with, the good news with bone density is it's fairly passive in how you can obtain bone density. As I can't stress enough today, and I'm going to nag you to death, it's about consistent, regular use of your machine. And if you are using it to manage skin tone or pain or whatever else you're using it for, we tend to be more regular at using it for the good stuff than we do the work. So, however you're using your plate, please don't beat yourself up if you're not working yourself out regularly to a point of exhaustion. I simply want you using your plate regularly to accomplish longer term, stronger bones. And, the little subliminal thing is, once you start using it regularly, you generally want to start doing more. You start feeling stronger. You start feeling more stable. It gives you more confidence, and you tend to progress. So if I do a good job and just keep you motivated and using the darn thing, the rest tends to fall into place. So today I talked about 5 moves. We're going to do a beginner session today. To me, beginner means maybe I can stand, maybe I can't stand, maybe I can stand for a little bit, but not for 5 to 10 minutes. So today we're going to start seated. We're going to progress to 2 very basic standing positions. Next week, I'm going to return on Monday, and I will be talking more of an intermediate. I'm going to do 3 weeks in a row on bone density so that you have 3 different workouts that you can follow depending on where you are at. And maybe there's more than one of you in the house dealing with this and you're in different places. Maybe you're really fit and you just had an injury or sustained surgery or something. So where you're at in your life today is what I want to focus on. And what I'm doing today will be applicable for my beginners and equally effective for those of you that may be recovering or are supposed to be reducing the amount of weight bearing time. So maybe you're not supposed to be standing for long periods, or maybe you're not able to resume your day-to-day regular activities yet. A lot of the stuff I'll be doing today is applicable for that as well. So for those of you that have never joined me for a session before, always have a stool. Depending on your height, I'm walking around about 5'10", so a nice bar height or counter height stool is better. The goal is when you're seated and your feet are on the plate, you want to be at about a good 90-degree angle. Hang on, I forgot to check if you can see and hear me. Thank you, Diana. You love my t-shirt. This was my winner's find on the weekend in the junior girls section. I was looking for my daughter and I found something for me. I can get on in morning while eating and then okay before bed. Absolutely, Lisa. Diane's saying she's using it every morning. I'm going to leave some questions till the end of this, but many of my clients that are using the machine for lifestyle, the feel good, the soft stuff where you're not pushing yourself to fatigue, they're using it 4 or 5 times a day. But it might be for 2 to 3 minutes. If you're using it more frequently to manage symptoms, to boost your energy, loosen you up after sitting on that, chair for so long behind the desk, that's lifestyle or feel good use. If you're pushing yourself, you're doing push-ups, squats, crunches, things that require you to fatigue. The goal is to push yourself within your range and your ability. That's a different thing. That wouldn't be 4 or 5 times a day. We're not getting to that point yet today. So the stool that I'm using today, am I plugged in, is adjustable. Today I'm working on the Rumblex Plus model simply because I had it set up. I want to make sure that you can see me okay. And I've got a couple of different things here to give you simply ideas. There is no exact path across the finish line. For those of you that are joining me and partaking in today's 5 moves, yes, we are starting seated on a stool. For those of you that are frail, you lack energy, you fatigue easily, you're just maybe weak or you're recovering from something, being seated in a stool takes the majority of your body weight out of the equation. So if you're unable to stand or you shouldn't be standing, there are often ways that you can still use your plate with modifications. So I apologize for those of you that ask me, when can I use my plate for yada yada? It's never a black and white answer because none of you are exactly the same. So for me, I'm doing all my sessions in oscillating. Oscillating is really it's the best movement type for boosting the balance quickly. I prefer oscillating for all of my sessions. It's the most functional. It's the most tolerable by more users. It feels best. And it gives you the less amount of head movement. Not a harmful thing, but it does take some getting used to. If you're dealing with weakness, you're severe osteo and you're just getting out of your chair for the first time, we don't tend to like the feeling of the head movement, and it's hard for us to bend our knees to reduce that. So right now I'm sitting with my feet about hip width apart. I simply want to get some circulation and some lymphatic movement into the lower legs before we do anything else. And even though we're only bearing a little bit of weight, the fact that our legs are moving, our muscles are pulling on our bones, we're starting to contribute to bone density, bone flexibility, strength. This is, sometimes you got to start where you can, depending on where you're at. Just because you physically can't stand on a machine doesn't mean that you can't increase many benefits to your body using your plate. The next suggestion that I would like to mix it up, and for those of you that are unable to join me for the standing part of where we'll progress to, is to add some weight. So if you're able to sit, but you can't stand for long periods, you can, before you sit down, if you have Life Pro dumbbells, good for you. They may not be something you use for every exercise yet, but they're a really easy way to add mass, and the adjustable ones give you options. These are some kettlebells. How much are these? These are 10 pounds each. So I'm picking up an extra 20 pounds. And all I'm going to do while I'm sitting here is I'm going to add a little more weight. So I'm putting 10 pounds more on each leg. You know, use a bag of rice, use a bag of flour, use a couple of jugs of water. Increase the mass in some way, shape, or form. Your bones and your muscles bearing your body weight is how they get stronger. You're resisting the gravitational forces of the earth. They're holding you upright. That's, you know, if you look into the health effects of gravity, it gets a little bit more into detail as to how our body builds bones and muscle mass for our life on this planet. A vibration plate is simply an environment that increases superficially your exposure to gravity. Don't worry about how much or so much or what setting. Just get comfortable with what feels good to you. And I recommend oscillating with be functional, hip width apart. I would prefer you at a mid speed range. So on your Rumblex models where you've got 60, play in the 30 to 40 range with a closer foot placement. That's your intensity, your amplitude. If you're really, really wide and you're dealing with, you know, an inactive body, you're very frail, the slow speeds can be jarring and very choppy. And the vibration machines aren't like a treadmill. The speed is they have their purpose, but there's not one exact frequency or speed or setting that's the best for everyone's bone density. There's lots of studies that have been conducted, and often companies will highlight a certain frequency or a certain protocol that they saw because it best showcases their equipment. But know that by no means that is a representation of all the sciences. I've been doing this 20 years. I don't need to see half the science. I've got clients that have been using these machines 15, 20 years, and with very little effort, they're seeing remarkable improvements because they're doing it regularly for their pain and their swelling and those types of things. So the next progression, if you are unable to stand, because bone density isn't just about the lower body, especially for my ladies, for those of you that, you know, maybe you're dealing with other things like frozen shoulder or arthritic joints or just pain. I want you to try, if you're not doing this type of an exercise now, try adding the elbows or less intense, the hands to the knees. This is where the movement is. So by just connecting the hands or the elbows, you're becoming a part of the equation, but we're keeping the hips and the low back to a degree out of it. We're not putting more body weight on the plate other than, you know, maybe the 15, 20 pounds that our upper body is leaning. So this is another way that you can add mass to the lower body, but also get a little bit of action, some lymph and some circulation. You could do some shoulder rolls. Look up some of my seated sessions. I will post my recap of sessions each week now after I've done one of these, so you can look back on other sessions. But for those of you that are unable to stand for long periods yet, maybe this is all you're able to do. Do this a few times a day. Let your body decide when you need a fix. Maybe you need an energy boost. Maybe you're feeling sluggish. Maybe you're going to the mall to have coffee with your friends and you just want to be more stable. Even seated use is going to improve your balance within the course of that session. So it's a good pre-activity tool if you want to boost balance, circulation. If you're dealing with other things like neuropathy, drop foot, anything to do with the lower legs, it's a good idea to spend a little bit of time just warming up those lower extremities before you progress to more weight-bearing exercises, which is where we're going next. So the stool, if you're not standing regularly on your plate or you're afraid to, you know, that's common, just so you know. You may want to have it here simply to give you a little bit of comfort. If you want to sit down, it's a good thing to have. If you're not used to standing on the plate now and you get fatigued, you've got an option to sit down. Standing on the plate, same rules apply. I want your feet approximately hip width apart, but I want you to make sure that your knees are slightly bent. As an experiment, lock up the legs. It's not going to hurt you. Stand here for a minute. Even though that booty and those hips are shaking all over the place, the most of the movement is going towards your head. With your body locked up like this, you're kind of like a big letter A. You're like a pendulum, and all the movement is going to the head. If you bend the knees just slightly, the natural movement, the natural shock absorbers below the waist kick in and accept and work with the movement versus just move you back and forth in a stiff fashion. So bend those knees slightly. If you're not able to bend very deeply, this is scaring the heck out of you, and you might want something to hang on to. Another good reason to use the chair. Maybe you're stable, but you don't trust yourself yet. Sometimes it's just a mental game. So sometimes just having something to hang on to. Don't hang on for dear life. Just something to give you a little bit of reassurance. So this is 2 to 3 minutes if it feels okay. If you want to do some pelvic tilts or some arm swings, anything you want to do, I want you standing on this machine for about 30 seconds to a minute if it feels comfortable. If you're able to stand on it for a minute and range of motion allows, try pushing to my last position, which is a little baby squat, okay? Let go and see. If you're hanging on for dear life, it'll feel like when you let go, you shouldn't feel like you're falling backwards or forwards. You should be just keeping those heels planted, going as low as your range of motion allows, and simply hold still. If balance looks okay, that might look like this. So you're squatting, and what you'll feel when you're doing your squats, those thighs are burning. They're accepting all the movement. If you've got secondary goals of weight loss, strength, getting up out of the chair easier, this is all you have to do. You don't need a whole big routine. Walk before you run. Let's get those legs strong and more functional before we start getting into a bunch of elaborate routines that just freak you out and scare you away. So on this one, if you've been listening to me the whole time and now you're pooped out and you're so waxed you can't even stand up, you can just sit back down in your chair. And it's a good idea if you are starting standing exercises, pushing yourself into that squat, to give you the scapegoat. Have a fail-safe. So if you do want to sit down, maybe you want to go a little bit longer, do a combination of seated or standing. The other option is I've got in front of me the Life Pro stool. So if you are squatting and you're fearful of falling, and at this point you're so fatigued you're afraid you might, you can step on to I've got the Aeroflex step here. Just gets you onto dry land, gives you a little bit of a break without the movement. And then once you've got 15-20 seconds to recover, if you're feeling okay and the goal is more fitness, the strength, the weight loss, I encourage you just once a day to try pushing off a couple of reps. Push those legs a bit. If you've got a day ahead of you, you're going out for a walk with your friends, don't push yourself early in the day, especially if you suffer with fatigue. I want to make sure, as you're starting out, you've kind of got that balance of enough strength and energy to still go about your day to day. But if you do want to get stronger, you want to start dropping a few pounds, simply doing a light squat, engaging those quads and those glutes is going to be the best way to get from point A to B. I also have an example here of something that, yes, I built with my own two hands. This is something I just got large pieces of dowel from the hardware store, sanded it, stained it. I work with a lot of pediatric and geriatric users, and you don't always have room for all the fancy chairs and things. So the ladder, I would put this against the wall, and it just gives you something to hang on to without being a huge visual eyesore in the home. Another good trick, if you've got a dedicated space and you're using your machine on it regularly, is just your regular safety rails, the ones that you put by the toilet or by the shower, the ones you get at the drugstore as well. And if range of motion and you're working with a light model, you could even put it behind a sofa. You could put it by the kitchen island during the day. If you're using your machine regularly throughout the day, I want to make sure that it's accessible. Make sure it's not 4 miles down at the end of the guest bedroom hallway where you're never going to go to it. The biggest tip, I'm going to reiterate this 1,000 times today, is consistent use. There's 3 things that you need to be successful in regaining your bone density. If we're coming from that beginner place today, we're getting active for the first time, perhaps we're recovering. As I said, I'll get into an intermediate and an advanced one in subsequent weeks. But for today, I'm speaking to the audience that's unactive. You're going downhill. Pills aren't going to be the only savior here, people. You need to look at good nutrients. What are you giving your body to sustain these activities? Are you being hydrated? Your body needs that. The machine's not only helping the bones and the balance, but with all the lymph and the circulation, you're increasing detoxification. There's so many other things that you're benefiting from. So you got to support and assist your body in this process. I want you to also be very realistic. If it's not something you're going to do, I'm not saying you have to do what I'm doing, but pick something with your vibration plate that you enjoy doing, something that you visualize you can do and will do regularly. The last thing I want to do is give you a big old program, as I said, that's going to scare you off. Workout, diet, all these words are so demotivating and so negative in some respects. I want you to focus on what you can do today and just get started, even if it's just sitting on a plate. Many of you that are way below baseline, you're likely dealing with other things, symptoms of swelling, pain, fatigue, all these things I talked about earlier. Just by using your machine for a minute or two, for a feel-good perspective, all this is time on the bones and activity on the bones. And I think the biggest advice I can give you is just to enjoy using your plate regularly in some way, shape, or form. Once to twice, 3, 4, 5 times a day. I don't like to put limits on that, but use common sense, guys. If Debbie said in a session that you can use it 5 times, that doesn't mean that you should be doing an hour killing yourself workout every time. How many times a day do you roll your shoulders, or how many times, do you have a stretch if you've been sitting too long? Same kind of principles, but the machine's just going to get it done a little bit quicker with a little bit more going on, a little bit more effective on the scale of benefits you're going to get doing those kind of things on the plate. I hope that helps. So I'm going to just check back in here. I want to see if I have anyone that has fallen asleep on me. And I'm completely blind, so I need to turn a light off here. And I want to see who's got some questions for me. Okay. Okay, so first of all, thank you again, Diana, for joining me. You're becoming Miss Consistency Queen here. You're just doing some homework here a couple weeks ago, and look at you. You're already into a bit of a routine. I see Lisa is here. Let me know if you are still here, where you're from. If you did have questions, something specific to bone density, perhaps something you're dealing with, or someone you care about, now is your chance to absolutely hop on and ask me questions. Diane's using it every morning, not a girl, and I'm pretty sure you got into this for the bone density reasons. And as you know, it's not a black and white thing, but I'm very proud of you, Diana, for using it regularly. That's really the key. Vicky, I need to have a room dedicated to Life Pro. You should see the real estate and the shelving that I've invested in here in the last couple of months. I too, because I do a lot of live training videos, I have a room dedicated, but I've learned some tricks with some really good storage shelves and, combining items. But I like combining my treatments. I like using my red light while I'm using my vibration plate, and I end every day sitting on my mini PEMF infrared mat, because it's the laziest way that I can get relief while I'm dealing with my children and maybe playing a game at night or something. So there's all kinds of other benefits to these technologies. I'm not going to sit here and say this is the best vibration plate or this is the best red light device. The best plate is going to be what's best for your lifestyle. So a couple things plate-wise that I want you to think about. Debbie's sitting here telling you use it regularly, and consistency. And be consistent about it. If you find that you need to be moving the plate around during the day, I want you considering the Waver or the mini model. They're lighter, they're a little bit more portable. A lot of my clients using it for symptom management, even though money may not be a concern, maybe you have a dedicated space, you may not have the ability to move the thing around regularly. And that's sometimes why people end up with 2 machines. You've got your stationary work it out machine, and then you've got the one you take to the cabin or the kitchen or what have you. So selecting a machine isn't as important as selecting something that you're going to use. I always recommend oscillating movement. There are 2 primary types of movement. Life Pros, every single one of their models has oscillating. So from there, it's a matter of understanding how you plan to apply the tool. Same goes for red light or any of the other devices. How do you visually see yourself using it? Do you want something that you can wear, strap on and do it that way? Or do you want something that you can set beside you and forget about while you're doing other tasks? Do you have the ability to administer a massage gun to yourself? Or, so there's all kinds of ways, whether you're treating yourself or treating someone else, look at who you're applying it to and why. And that sometimes, this isn't going to work because, that's not going to work. You know by looking at the devices, there's not one that's perfect for every application. If you're treating a body part regularly, maybe it's a foot. Maybe some of the Alevipro, the sole garments are better. If you're always treating the low back and you want something on the go, maybe it's the belts. So there's all kinds of ways you can complement. These other tools are also going to give you the bone benefits. So they're boosting mitochondria. They're also helping with detoxification. They're reducing pain. So there's reasons to combine these technologies. And whatever it is that you fall in love with and you're using, just be consistent in using it. So that's why it's important you pick something, be realistic, and make it something you're going to enjoy. Because if you don't, you're going to stick with it about 2 to 3 weeks. And once the newness wears off, you're not going to get to it. So a vibration plate for me, if I had to pick one tool, yeah, I'm biased. Of course, it's a vibration plate, only because you can get the benefits of the exercise component as well. You're bearing your weight. It's a mechanical stimulus. It submits to your body frequencies in a variety of ways through mechanical movement of your body. The other technologies are also frequency, but they're more passive. Your body mass doesn't come into the equation, so you're not getting the exercise and bone density benefits that you would from using the plate. So that's why that's always choice number one. Today we had 5 basic moves, 3 variations on seated, 2 variations on standing. And I really, really challenge you to just start where you are. Don't worry about where you should be or what setting this person told you is the best or what that study said. Weight bearing activity improves the bones. So it's a matter of understanding how you personally are able to and how you enjoy bearing weight. And I got 10 bazillion different videos out there to offer you variety on the intern. Look at where you're at starting physically and be conservative in your time, conservative in your intensity. That's your foot in your hand position, and start by using it more frequently with less time until you can build up and sustain longer durations. Okay, Diana says, my videos are always so informative and long and rambly too, I'll add. They're a big help when I started using my Rumblix. I've started out sitting and have worked my way to standing. That's awesome, Dana. My balance and lymph flow has improved immensely. Started adding the bands and looking forward to continued healing. The bands are great. They're another way that you kind of increase your mass. Your muscles and your bones are resisting more, but they're great. A little bit more functional. They're lighter to manage and handle. A lot of my clients dealing with just other things we don't think about, grip strength. Some of my clients don't have good grip strength. I don't want you using kettlebells and weights. Like, common sense applies. The biggest thing I find with the elastic bands and the side bands, I'm such a klutz, Dana, and I'm always tripping on them with my feet when I'm stepping off the machine, or I forget I attached them and I'm sitting on top of one. I prefer weights. I really love the Life Pro adjustable weights, because if I feel like, pushing myself a little harder in some of my squats and that, I can take a lot more weight standing than I can doing the arm stuff, especially this time of year. I got to get back into it for tank tops. But I find in my standing positions, like I can pick up 70, 80 pounds all day long and push myself to fatigue faster. That's another way. The quicker you can get those muscles to fatigue, the less time and action on the joints. You'll notice today in my squats, for those of you that joined me, I wasn't moving. You don't need to move. Moving requires technique. And if you aren't exercising regularly right now, I guarantee the technique is going to go out the window once you land on a machine that's challenging your balance and everything else you got going on. So hold still. It's less aggravating on those arthritic or swollen joints anyways. And guess what? You're going to fatigue so much quicker when you don't move, because the body doesn't like that. It wants to move and put the load elsewhere. So just by holding still, you're going to feel the burn. You can almost tailor where you feel the burn, and you're going to be done quicker. Less time and effort on those joints is going to cause less inflammation and all that other good stuff. Again, who else is here? Kirsten, any way to help plantar fasciitis? Yes, there's lots of ways to help plantar fasciitis. Seated is the best way to start. Since you've asked that, plantar fasciitis, sciatic, sometimes there's reasons other than, fatigue and poor mobility that you can't get to the standing. My favorite way, where's my needle? For plantar fasciitis, one of the things that you're supposed to be doing, or you should be doing now, is stretching the calves. The calves are a big part of you know, how the body compensates when you have flare-ups in the plantar fasciitis area. It's also something that you know, if it's tight, you probably have been told to do stretches, or you've got a foot stretcher. So I use foam pool noodles on the plate so you can stretch and activate those areas while seated. Now, if it's really, really sensitive, like you can't even stand on it because it feels like there's glass in the heel, get a mat. Mat up your machine first. Okay, you might need a little bit of cushion for the first few sessions. And with something like plantar fasciitis where you're not going to stand, please don't be afraid, but please try my approach. That's all that my way is that there's no perfect way to do this, just like there's never one program at the gym for everybody. This is just the way that I use machines. I want you to crank it up, like fast speed. Like if you're on your Rumblex, I want you at like 50. Bring the feet really close. More movements, but less amount of movement is going to be really soothing. There's no choppiness. It's much more tonic and feeling, and you're going to get relief a lot faster. If you're dealing with severe plantar fasciitis, this might be all that you can tolerate. Where the pool noodles come in is they just add a way that you can put them under the balls of your feet to stretch the calves, or you can put them under the heels to mimic a bit of a calf raise. And this is a really good way to just get right into that heel, into that plantar muscle. Depending on the size of your feet, if I'm working with my little people, or if you're under about 5'1", 5'2", you may need to slice a portion of it lengthways to get lower. Just an option. And I would say, you know, if you can, another good one is, you know, just calf stretches while you're seated. But what you want to do is activate and do the things that you're supposed to be doing for relieving that now. You're just using the plate as an environment to get it done faster and more effectively. I hope that makes sense. It's not about a whole new program or a whole bunch of new moves. If you've seen a doctor or therapist, you probably have been given some exercises that you're supposed to be doing already. Again, it's about doing them regularly. And let's face it, the machine is funner. It is. It's funner. I have a bad SI joint. Anything I should know. I'm 74 and just received it 3 days ago. So if it's a new SI joint, you're probably not cleared for weight bearing yet. Now, here's the thing, and this is where I get into all the trouble with the therapists and the doctors, because you got to get creative. Never lose your curiosity and always be creative. And I love it when you ask questions like this, Kathy. So you had it on one side, but you've got another side that you didn't have surgery on, and it's doing all the darn work these days. So if I was working with you personally, seated is not going to affect the SI joint, but it's going to give you some relief in the legs that I know you're going to want with all the sitting. But let's just say, for example, it's the left leg that you've had surgery on. Why can't you do this? You know, if it's 3 days old, I wouldn't try this yet because there is some movement. But take the strong leg, put it right in the middle. Okay, this is when you're able to bear weight, and take the surgery leg out of the equation. This here, the step, you can also split up your move. You could put this beside the machine or in front of it. Keep the leg that's had surgery or that's been compromised. Maybe you're able to bear weight but don't want it on the machine yet. Well, give the good leg some relief and some attention because it's doing all the compensating, and keep the surgery leg off the plate. It really depends on where you were personally starting before the surgery. So if you've never used a plate in your life, how I introduce someone to a plate than someone that was using a plate prior to the surgery is very different. If you're a complete brand new user, you don't know about the newbie stuff. You know, you get itchy and tingly. There's kind of a newbie period you go through in the first 3 to 4 sessions. Whereas if you've been using a plate regularly and you went in for surgery, it's just a matter of resuming activity like anything else. You understand that it might be a little itchy and your body's somewhat receptive and conditioned to the device already. But if you're using it post-surgery and you've never used a machine before, I do have a session on before and after surgery, and that'll be in my list of sessions. I'll link in this after the fact. But reduce weight. Once you're able to bear weight, then you can start doing a little bit more with your plate. Keep those feet close, reduce the intensity above all, and keep those sessions short. I hope that helps. I also noticed I actually sleep through the night, Diana says. That's a common side benefit. There's a lot of people that are looking at machines and using them for sleep disorders. But sometimes when you weren't expecting it, Usually when you're looking at a machine, it's for this reason, bone density, or I'm looking at it for weight loss. But, everybody's looking at the machines for different reasons. And there's so many things they can do because activity does so many things for us. Anything you want to accomplish is accomplished physically through activity to a degree. All the machine is an environment that makes the activity more possible and less taxing on you and your time schedule. So I hope that makes sense. There is no perfect path across the finish line. Again, I deal with so many chronic disorders. I want you guys really to be comfortable in understanding that you're always in control with those feet, whether they're closer or further apart, and try playing with the mid to higher speed ranges, especially for some of the feel good stuff. You don't need as much time, 30 seconds to a minute per position. See how you feel and build from there. Well, thank you for joining me today. I will be back next week for more of an intermediate. We're going to kind of pick up where I left off today with the squat and progress to some meaner things, intermediate levels. So no chair next week unless you're wanting it for fatigue or you're just wanting to join us on a seated basis. We'll be standing exercises primarily next week. The following week, when I get into advanced, we're going to get into some push-ups, some core, more on the floor stuff. So join me next week. I will be here typically on Mondays around 5 p.m. Eastern time. And thank you so much for joining me today, guys. If you do have any questions related to today's session, please tag me at Debbie with a Y. Perhaps you're watching this on a recorded basis. I want to make sure that I get your comments. And there is a review contest going on. Do not miss it. I'm going to drop the link right now. Enter to win $1,000 Visa gift card and a spanking new Life Pro t-shirt. So if you have a new product or you have one and you just haven't done a review yet, go through the link there for details on how to get entered to win. Thank you for joining me, guys. Have a great rest of your week. Don't work too hard. And thank you for listening to my rambles. I wish you good health and a good rest of your week.